Hello guys, I hope you are doing well. So today I decided to make a video on about local storage. What is local storage? How can we use local storage? All about that. So let's just create our HTML and JavaScript. So contain template and the link to our JavaScript. So now let's just talk about a little bit about local storage. So let me just do basic h1 flow, go live. I'll show you what local storage. So if you inspect and go to this application part and you go here, you see a local storage here, and if you click here, you see here this part is it's called local storage. So as you can see, there is a key and value pair here, just like the objects. So why do you need this part? So if you let's say you have object, let's say let's open one object, call it R, and let's say we have color, and it's, let's say, red, and wheel property, and it's 4. So we have this car object. So if you realized when you open Microverse dashboard, for the first time it asks you your login and password. So once you write that, it just for the second time, third time, and so on, it doesn't take your login and password again and again. It just opens it. That's the part that where local storage comes into play. So for the first time, when you fill those parts for login and password, once you click submit or once you click login, it just sends your sends the login and password to local storage. So once you send your data to the local storage, even if you reload the page or just leave the page and come back, your data in the local storage has not been removed. It will be always saved there. So let me just show something like that for you. So instead of this, let's see form post. Let's see, we have input fields with let's say email. Don't need anything here. Second input is, let's see input text just for this, and we'll have button. So let's say login. You see, have this stuff. Oh, okay. I'm terribly sorry. I forgot I was going to. Terribly sorry. Okay, so we have something like this now. So once you add some information, your login and password, once you click, it just sends your data to local storage to here. So once you leave the page, it just reads those your login and password and just fills this part for you. So you don't need to fill those login password fields over and over again once when you leave that page. I think that's very cool thing. So let's learn how to do that. For that, first we need to learn about what is JSON. So let me just so this is basic JavaScript object. very simple JavaScript object. What is JSON? JSON is something that you work with, and it is the JSON format looks exactly like this, but if you see, it will be your key pair also have one of these quotes. So the difference is the server side or local storage doesn't understand the basic JavaScript object, but to send your data to local storage, you need to convert your data to JSON format, and that's very easy. That's very easy. So let's see. So we want to make our this vanilla JavaScript object to JSON format. So we can do something like this. So let's say open one variable. So made converted to JSON. Let's just call it like that. So what we do is we just write the JSON like this is all uppercase and dot. Then we have these two methods, parse and stringify. Stringify means you are converting your object to JSON format, and parse means vice versa. You are converting your JSON format to JavaScript object. So in this case, we need stringify, and inside these parentheses, we just put what we want to convert, what object we want to convert to JSON format. In our case, we want to convert our car. So we converted it. So that's it. This is how you convert your JavaScript object to JSON data. So this variable is now JSON data. So now we can send this data to local storage. How we can do it? So this one is also simple. So you just write local storage and the dot, then it has a couple of methods. So in this case, we mostly use get item and set item. So set item, as its name explains, you are going to send data to local storage, and get item is you get the data from the local storage. So in our case, we set item, and it takes two parameters. So from the first one is the name for key pair here. So let me just show you. Let's call it like, let's say a list. You can name it whatever you want. So for the second one, what you are going to send to local storage. In our case, we have to send our JSON data and our object that's converted to JSON like this. So we want to send this thing. So let's put it here, convert it to JSON. And that's all. Let's see. As you see, it's already here. So you see, this is how you send your data to local storage. So once you refresh the page, or even if you leave and go back, and if you go back and go to this application local storage section, it's still here. Even if I leave this VS Code, it still be here. It doesn't matter. So now I think we can you now I think you know how to send your data to local storage. Let's see how to get that data that we sent to local storage. Let's say once we reload the page, or when the user leaves the page, and when he comes back, let's say we get that data from the local storage and show it on somewhere. So let me just comment it, write this, and data to local storage. Oh, this part is sending data to local storage. This part is converting data to JSON form. Okay, so let's get data So now to get the data from the local storage also we can use like that, but when you are getting the data, it would be better if you put it inside the variable so that you can use it. So let's put it inside variable. Let's call data. Okay, you can name it whatever you want. So local storage dot, as I said, now we use get item. The get item, it just gets one parameter. So from here, what you are going to get, so we want to get this list, right? The one that we sent here. So we just write that list. That's all. We got the data here. But to use it in JavaScript or in our browser, we can't use JSON format. So we need to put it back to our vanilla JavaScript object. So we will do something like this here, but we use it Stringify to convert it to JSON. Now we use parse to put it back to JSON to object. So we can say let's put it again to variable. We can say data2 maybe. JSON dot parse, then we put the object that we want to parse. Okay, so this object, this data is a thing we want to parse because this is coming from local storage as JSON format. We just put it here. So we converted it to JavaScript object now. So we can log this data on the console even we don't need this one now. Let's just comment it out and check our browser. As you see, it's still here. I just put this our object in, I commented it. So let me just log this data to on the console. Okay, so R is not defined. Let's see. Okay, we don't need this part because we already sent our data to local storage, so we don't need this part. We just want to get data now. Okay, as you see, we have this JavaScript object now. You can even check its type by saying type of data2, and it says the object. But one thing, even if you check this data, just JSON data on the local storage on the browser, it says string. So you can know that by seeing this here. If you check this JSON format and on the console, its type will be always string. But if you check this data2 that we converted to JavaScript object, it should be object, right? So we can use this data now at some point. So instead of saying console log, we can just do some stuff. Let's say we let's say h3 and let's see p tag, and once we get the data from the local storage, we can just put it here. Okay, so let me get reference for them. Const h3 equal to doc query selector. I'm just going to go for query selector, but you can go for whatever you want. This guy will be okay. So the thing we want to do is just say t dot text content is equal to data2 dot what you need to remember what we are going to put. So let's put this color. Okay, data dot color. So for the h3, we can say text content is equal to, let's say, this wheels. Okay, I forgot data to dot wheel. Okay, so now as you see, this data is coming from local storage and displaying it on the UI. So you can do something like that. So instead of displaying it here, you can just get reference for these two and just put it as we did. So let me just do that so you will understand. So let's give them ID, user, typo, and the email. Instead of getting this stuff here, we will get email SP and user email. So instead email and user. Yes, okay, I'm terribly sorry that here you need to, since for the input fields we don't have text content, you need to say value for text content. Yeah, as you see, the data we sent is showing on this input fields, but we don't need to, in a real project we don't need this, but we want to do some, might want to do something like that. Let's say we let's say I entered my email, let's just put the fake email. So here let's say and once we click, we might want to send this data to the local storage, and once we refresh the page and to fill this fields with the data that we sent. So that's also not something that's hard. So let me just remove this part. I think we need this part. So okay, let me just comment this. Instead of saying this, we can just say let's say we will get reference to these guys. User name, dog, whatever name user, so we just copy it, email. So we got the reference to this, and we need to do something like this. Once we click this button, take the data that's inside this field and send it to local storage. So once we need to get reference to this button as well. So let's get reference to button. Let me just copy paste, and instead of saying just button, and you can say here btn. So now what we do is just adding event listener to this button. Our event listener, we can do click, but in your case you might do submit, since this if you put here type submit, then you are going to do something like this. Let's say here you will write submit, event type should be submit, and you don't put event listener for button but for form. Just quick note, if you let's say if you have a submit button inside form, if you add click event to this button, it will never work. So you need to add that event listener to this form if you have submit type of a button. But if you have a click type of a button, this button type, then you can put you can just say click. Okay, so let's continue what we're doing. So once we click that button, we just got this email and this username's value. Let's say let's open one object in outside. We can even do it here so that you understand better. Const up data object equal to this, and let's say username is equal to the data that this username contains. In that case, you can say username dot value. Then let's, for the second one, we can say email, but you can put whatever you want for this key pairs. For the second one, we put this email's value. We say email dot value. So we have object that now we created our object, and the inside, once we fill this field and once we click this, we this event listener creates this object and puts the information that we wrote here. And now the only thing remaining is just send that object to local storage. So we need to convert our data to JSON format. Let me just show you the quick way. Instead of converting this data to JSON and just sending to local storage, you can say local storage set item as, let's send as different this time, login. Let's call login. Instead of converting it in separate variable and sending it in separate line, you can just do it in just one line. In this case, in this part, you can just say json.stringify, and inside here you can just put this JavaScript object. So this one is much more clean and more readable, I guess. So in this case, you are just converting your data inside this method when you are sending. So this one also works. Let's just see it. So let's write here a fake email. True. Here let's name Firdaus, and once we click, this information should be saved here. Once we click, as you see, we put it as login, the thing that we write here, and here, as you see, we have this information that we wrote here. As you see, alarm email mail.true, and if username Firdaus is email and username is the one that we wrote here, but you can go for whatever you want. So now the thing is, once we reload the page, it's not filling this space because we didn't write any logic for that. Let's just write the logic. So when we need to understand when this part should be filled, right? So whether the user left the page or reload the page, that's one. We can use one event listener for that. So we can use we can add event listener for window. So we can use load, so that even if he reloads the page or left and come back, all of them are considered as a reload. So we just put load information. Sorry for that. So we put the load. So now we can get the data from the local storage just like this readable way. So in this time, first we need to write a json.parse. Then we can say local storage to get the data, get item, which item we want to get is login. So you just write login here. So it would be better if you just save it in a variable so that you can use it to fill those input fields. So let's call it data is equal to this. So we have our object now because we already converted from JSON format to JavaScript object, and also we got that information from local storage. So it's just time to fill this part with the information we have. So let's just say we can just repeat this same stuff So we can just say we will say this one username dot value is equal to my data dot, you should remember this part, right? For username we need to put this information, this key information that contains this data. So we just say username. For the second one, for email dot value is equal to my data dot this information, because this key email. So as you see, as the page reloaded, it just got the data from here and just filled this space for us. As you see, if we remove this and page, so it's empty. Let's add another stuff. So let's just call movie mail.ru, and let's just say cinema. So once we click, it's here. So once we refresh the page, it's getting that data from local storage and putting it here. So I guess that's pretty much it for JSON, how to work with JSON and how to work with local storage. So I hope you guys enjoyed the lesson and got idea how to work with local storage and how to work with JSON data. So if you like the video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button not to miss the lessons just like this one, and also don't forget to hit the like button if you like it, and I want to see your comments in the comment section below. Okay, see you guys in the next video.